Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid sits upon a long list of classic westerns I haven't watched yet. I love westerns, but I just never find myself grabbing them to watch for whatever reason. This one being one of the bigger names in the genre, even nabbing 4 Oscars for Best Writing based on material not previously published, Best Cinematography, Best Original Song, and Best Original Score, while also being nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Sound. This is one I've always seen around, but I finally picked up because I believe... Where did I get this one at? I honestly can't remember where I picked it up at. Anyways, the film is directed by George Roy Hill and follows Butch Cassidy, played by Paul Newman, and the Sundance Kid, played by Robert Redford, based on the real-life old western outlaws, robbing trains and banks until they're on the run, being chased down by bounty hunters hired to kill them, and an expert tracker. The two and their love interest decide to bail to Bolivia, where their antics brings the heat back on themselves. I really enjoyed this one. First off, Paul Newman and Robert Redford have amazing chemistry together. They both give great performances that I'm honestly shocked weren't also nominated for Oscars. Both have a certain amount of charisma, and that really brings their characters to life. Even though they're the bad guys, very heavily sugar-coated bad guys, you can't help but root for them to pull through. There's just something so likable about them, and it's humorous that almost every character they rob is super friendly with them even though they are being robbed. The cinematography is absolutely beautiful, capturing some amazing landscaping. There's moments at night where they cast lights and create shadows that contrast really nicely. I also love some of the soft lenses they use to add some glow to some of the scenes. I want to mention too that I really enjoyed how they presented the opening credits to be like an old silent film. I just really enjoyed it and wanted to mention it. Also, the way the film chooses to end is great. It's one of those endings I've seen before, and I knew how the film would end before seeing it because it's so iconic. One of the problems is when you get into these classic movies, especially ones that are this popular and have this much impact, it's hard not to see some spoilers of the film because it's referenced or parodied in other pop culture. Just by being a movie nerd, you come across scenes, and that's the case here. By no means did it lessen the impact or how iconic it is. Another thing I really enjoyed was the music, which isn't typical Western fanfare. There's some licensed music that complements the tone of the film, but the original score is great as well. The tone I thought was the biggest issue of the film, which is 100% personal preference, and I know that. I prefer a more gritty Western personally, or one that goes hard into the spaghetti Western genre. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is a much lighthearted Western that borders into some comedy moments. I would have preferred a grittier take personally, as the shift between its comical nature or lightness can be off-putting and contrast with some of the darker moments and a clashing nature. The tone feels somewhat off balance for me at least. Still, even with that being said, there's some really great moments that wrap me up into the film. You do connect with Butch and Sundance, and when the odds were against them, I was invested. Another small issue I had was the gunshot sound effects. This was really only an issue in one shootout, but it's basically the same shot reused for every gunshot, and it gets somewhat annoying after a while. Still, there is something about the film that is easily rewatchable. Its quick pace and its characters and setting makes for a good story that's pretty well presented here. It's definitely one that's worth a watch, and I'll be watching it again eventually, and I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10.